I was 26 at a property seminar and a guy was standing up the front and said you need 10 properties to retire. And I remember thinking, that's insane. I can barely afford one, so no wonder most people never even start. But it turns out that 10 is a lie. It's way off. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 levels of retirement and how many properties you might need to get there. Level 1 is the pension, just living off NZ Super, and about 20 to 30% of retirees in New Zealand do live on the pension alone. For a couple, that's about 44 grand a year that you actually get to spend, which is the equivalent of if you and your partner both earned 26 grand a year from your jobs. Now, if you're in a couple and you currently earn more than 26k a year before tax, like most working people do, that could be quite a hefty pay cut. I mean, if you got a pay cut today from whatever you earn to 26 grand, could you survive? Probably not. But if you've paid off the house, you run one modest car, you shop the specials, you might just scrape by, but you'll have to remember that you'll always be one broken washing machine away from a pretty stressful month. So how many properties do you need to be at level 1? 0. Like, if you're happy living off the government benefit, you don't need any extra money. No KiwiSaver, no savings, shares or investments, though you are making quite a big assumption that NZ Super doesn't change between now and whenever you happen to retire. And I should say that for each of these levels, I'm going to base it on one couple who are both 45 years old, planning to retire at 65. So what does it take to get a bit more than just surviving? Well, level 2 is what Massey University calls the No Frills lifestyle. And honestly, it's a bit tighter than it sounds. It covers the basics, but there's not much room for extras. You're still carefully watching every dollar. For a couple, you get to spend about $48,700 a year, so it's super plus a bit more. And on that lifestyle, you could spend $29 a week on fruit and vegetables, about $18 a week on alcohol if you're actually following Massey University's sample budget. But it is still quite tight. That's why more than 60% of retired couples in the main centres spend more than this per week. So the No Frills lifestyle is below what the average retiree lives on. But how many properties do you need to live this lifestyle? Well, there are 2 strategies to turn rental properties into a comfortable retirement, and the one you choose impacts how many properties you'll potentially need. The first is the nest egg strategy, and this is where you buy properties, wait for them to go up in value, then eventually you sell them when you hit retirement and live off that money. It's a bit like how many retirees use their KiwiSaver to top up the NZ Super. The catch is that you have to guess when you'll die because you're eventually going to run out of money. The second strategy is the Golden Goose, and this is where you keep owning properties forever and you try and live off the rental income. The trade-off here is that you often need more money and more properties to make this work, and that's primarily because of tax. If you sell a property and spend the money, like in the nest egg strategy, those gains aren't taxed. If you live off rental income, well, that's income, so it is taxed. And if the tax takes, say, 20% of your income, then you need to earn much more to spend the same amount of money. Thankfully, for the No Frills lifestyle, you don't actually need that much money. You only need about 120k in the bank at 65 on top of NZ Super to make this lifestyle work. So buying one rental, waiting for it to go up in value, selling it 20 years later, that could easily be enough for the No Frills lifestyle. And because a single property is likely to go up more than that over 20 years, you could only need one property as well for the Golden Goose strategy. And if you're enjoying this video, do me a quick favor and hit the like and subscribe button and ring that notification bell. That's how I know which videos to do more of. And if you do already subscribe, you might already know that level 3 is the choices lifestyle. And this is what most Kiwis actually mean when they say that they want to retire comfortably. For a couple, you get to spend $92,600 a year, and this is where you actually do get some real choices. You can take the odd holiday around New Zealand. You can put money aside for something big like a camper van. It's comfortable. Now, if a health issue comes up, you're still in the public system, but you're spending more than the average retiree when you are on the choices lifestyle. Now, in terms of how many properties you need, it does depend where you invest because property prices tend to go up more consistently in some areas than others. I'll give you an example. 94% of the time, properties in Auckland have gone up in value by at least 6% a year over a decade. In a region like Gisborne, it's been more like 65% of the time. So if you want this lifestyle using the nest egg strategy, you might actually only need one Auckland rental property, give it 20 years to compound, and that might just get you over the line. For the Golden Goose, you'd need around 2, but the exact number of properties that you need does depend on a few factors, and one of the most important ones is how soon you buy. Because property, like all investments, benefits from time in the market. And the longer you're invested, the longer your money has to compound. So let's say that you ran the numbers and it looked like you needed 2 investment properties to live the choices lifestyle. Well, if you invest in them straight away and hold them both for 20 years, then that is a collective 40 years in the market, 20 years for each property. If you instead decide to buy one property this year and another in 10 years' time, then all up, those 2 properties have given you 30 combined years in the market. So you might need some more investments. You might even need to buy an additional rental property to make sure you've got enough assets compounding for long enough to make it work. Now, the math isn't quite that simple, and spreading your purchases out isn't automatically the wrong move, because when you gradually invest, you're not betting everything on one moment in the market. You pick up properties at different prices in different years, some cheaper, some more expensive, and it can tend to average out. This is called dollar cost averaging, and it takes some of the timing risk off the table. But the point that I'm really trying to make here is that the exact number of properties that you need does depend on when you invest and how quickly you build your portfolio. And I should mention that to create all of these scenarios in this video, not only did I use my wealth plan, which is a piece of software that we at Opus Partners have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars creating to run numbers like these, I also worked with Dennis, one of my financial advisors who helps Kiwis create these kinds of financial plans every day. And I mention it so you know that I've actually thought about these numbers and run them with quite a robust process. But maybe comfortable isn't the dream for you. Maybe you want to spend a bit more in your later years. That's where the affluent lifestyle comes in. This is where you can spend around 150 grand a year. And if you can make this happen, you can enjoy a very, very high quality of life. You get to drive the car you want, maybe even upgrade it every few years. If you want travel, you get travel. You can go where you want. And if a health concern comes up, you can potentially go private, pay for the treatment instead of waiting on the public list. And this is where the numbers do get serious. To live the affluent lifestyle using the nest egg strategy, it could take 4 rental properties built up over the first 10 years of investing. The Golden Goose, as I said, you often need more investments. The Golden Goose can take around 5 properties on the affluent lifestyle. But it's really important to say that it's not as simple as saying everyone needs 4 or 5 properties. I mean, let's say you buy a $600,000 rental, you start at 45 and the property goes up by 5% a year. By the time you retire at 65, it'll be worth about $1.05 million in today's money if it followed those numbers and projections exactly. Start with the exact same property, the exact same assumptions at 55, and now you've only got those 10 years to compound. So that property is worth closer to $827,000 in today's dollars based on those projections. Same property, same money in, the only difference was time. And here, time was worth more than $200,000. And that gap is exactly why the later you start, the more properties you tend to need to reach the same level. 4 rentals, that might do it for a 45-year-old to get to level 4, the affluent lifestyle. Leave it to 55 and you could need 6 or more to land in the same place. And it actually works in reverse as well. Start at 35 and you've got 30 years of time on your side. You'd need fewer rental properties. And you might have noticed that I'm not counting things like KiwiSaver or shares or if you own a business in these numbers, but from helping thousands of Kiwis create financial plans each year, we know that most people do have other investments. So if you've got some of those, you might actually need even fewer properties that I'm showing you here. And then we get to the top of the ladder, level 5, where you get to spend $200,000 per year. This is what I call the contribution lifestyle. And if you can get to this level, congratulations, you're going to be in the top few percent of retirees. And at this level, it's not just about you jetting off On overseas holidays, you can support the people around you. You can help the kids, help the grandkids, give to the causes that really matter to you. To live this on the nest egg, you'd need about 5 rentals, and on the Golden Goose, it's a big number, it's around 9 properties. That's based on you living off the rent for, as long as you own those properties, living off $200K a year. Now, to make that happen, you'd need around $6 million in assets, because to spend $200K a year, you'd need to earn around $300K in income before you start to get taxed. Plus, I'm factoring in that you're not buying these 9 properties straight away. You might decide to buy 1 a year over a decade. That takes a real income, a real appetite for debt, and a real tolerance for risk. So I'm not saying everyone should do this. But the thing that struck me as I was running these numbers with Dennis is even for a level 5 retirement, spending $200K a year using the more expensive Golden Goose strategy, we're still not even getting to 10 properties. And what that shows me is that if you're thinking about investing in property for your retirement, you really need to run the numbers like this for yourself, because each of our numbers of how many properties we're going to need, it's different. It's based on what income you want, how old you are, and how quickly you want to build your property portfolio. So if you want to find out how many you need, here's what you do. You book a free portfolio planning session with one of our financial advisors at Opus Partners, like Dennis, because then you get to use the same calculator I use to run all of these scenarios. And after just an hour, you walk away with a wealth plan that shows you how many properties you might need. And the links in the description will scan the QR code on your screen to book. So, how many rentals do you actually need to retire? A lot fewer than that guy at the seminar told me. For a lot of Kiwis at the level they'd be genuinely happy with, the honest answer might be closer to 2 paid off rentals plus super than it is to 10 properties. But if you're thinking about growing your property portfolio, one question you might have is, how do I even get to 5 rentals? And that's where you need to watch this video next, where I break down how to use one house to buy 5 more. Click the video on your screen and I'll see you in there.